Well, hi everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Chaffee. It is a Tuesday night, the 19th of February, 2019, rolling right along on what is a busy night weather-wise across the United States. So wait till you see the watches and warnings map, which is what we're going to start with. And it's loaded. I mean, it looks like about half the country is either under a winter storm warning or a winter weather advisory. We've got a couple of systems in play here. So we're going to take a look at all of that. The snow issue in the east, the puzzle that always is, trying to figure out who's going to get how much. And I've got my final call snow forecast map. I did a little bit of massaging here and there. Didn't really change too much in terms of the volume of the numbers. I just kind of moved a few lines around here and there. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about this right now. There's a few things about this that are hinting to me that maybe there's a little bit of upside here from what I looked at today. On the other hand, there's a few things that are telling me that be careful, that there could be some downside here as well. So I think that kind of lets me sort of straddle the line in the middle, and we'll see where it plays. Joe Rayo, if he's not tied up, will probably jump in at some point. So we're going to get right to it. Big hellos to everybody that's on board tonight. I see all the usuals are here, and it's always good to see every single one of you on a nightly basis. Thanks very much for being here. The app folks are on. Those that are on my free weather app, the meteorologist Joe Chaffee, that you can download from Google Play or on the App Store for Androids and iPhones. So have at it. It's absolutely free. Also, my Patreon members are on as well. That's my subscription site. That's just $2 a month for those of you who are interested. There's a link to Patreon on this live stream description, or if you're watching this on a replay, the descriptor to this video. And hello to those of you joining from my Facebook page, Meteorologist Joe Chaffee, from New York, New Jersey, Connecticut Stormwatch page, from Angry Ben's Angry Weather Facebook page, and from those of you on SS Storm Chase and Forecast team from South Central Pennsylvania and North Central Maryland. So why don't we just get to all this, because it is just busy. The winter weather advisories, winter storm warnings, and the flood watches that are up all encompass this weather system that's going to be impacting virtually the eastern half of the United States and then some. Warnings extend from western North Carolina, southwestern Virginia, northeastward, into and including the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area, eastern West Virginia, Maryland except the extreme northeast, and winter storm warnings across much of southern Pennsylvania and into southeastern Pennsylvania, but not into the county surrounding Philadelphia. Advisories for New Jersey, New York City, Long Island, Connecticut, the Hudson Valley, much of upstate New York, except the Northeast, and there'll be additional ones that will get added along the way. Back through Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, southern half of Michigan. The snow capital of the eastern half of the United States, at least, is Wisconsin, because they've been seeing some incredible amounts of snow since mid-January, and it just rolls on, and there's more to come. Winter storm warnings in northwestern Wisconsin, much of the southern, let's say 2/3 of Minnesota under a winter storm warning, virtually all of Iowa, eastern Nebraska, parts of Kansas, northwest Missouri. Now you've got the systems that are impacting the west. Winter storm warnings for northern New Mexico. New winter storm watches up for the northern half of Arizona. They just went through a round of winter storm activity. Snowed in Las Vegas. I mean, it was just amazing some of the pictures that came from there. And we've got winter weather advisories and some winter storm warnings in parts of southern Nevada, southern Utah. More advisories as you go up into northern Nevada, northern California, through Oregon, Idaho, and Montana. It's really a very, very busy map, and we don't want to forget the flood watches. These are very important for Kentucky, Tennessee, northern Alabama, eastern Arkansas, northern Mississippi, northwest Georgia, and even extending into parts of West Virginia. That rainfall there is going to be excessive. Mr. Rayo has walked into the room, so he's going to, I just wrapped up, Joe, all the watches of the morning, so I'm just going to kind of just real quick run through some of the current weather, and then we can get on with this weather system. Severe weather risk tonight. There's a marginal risk of severe weather across Louisiana, northeastern Texas, and parts of southwestern Mississippi as part of this whole mess that we're dealing with. And look at that east-west band of heavy rain that has broken out through much of the lower middle Mississippi Valley eastward through the Carolinas. And now we're seeing on that in parts of northwestern North Carolina, starting to see some snow and sleet that's breaking out there. And rainfall is going to be a big deal, so we'll put up the the Weather Prediction Center's rainfall map. We push it through another day, still forecasting a large area of 5 to 7 inches of rain or more in parts of Tennessee and Kentucky, extending up into West Virginia, 5-inch plus amounts there. Westernmost Virginia, the amounts start to tail off as you go eastward, but you're still talking liquid amounts up to at least a couple of inches, and some of this is going to be in the form of snow up in the Great Lakes and the upper Midwest. Of course, that is virtually all snow, and you've got much of the action that you see in the west from the Rockies westward. A lot of that, the liquid precip amounts there are all pretty much snow, depending, I guess, on elevation as you get closer to the coast. Okay, so, Joe, you and I just kind of struggled with our forecast here today, so I guess you can roll into the shot. We always struggle with these. You know, one of the things I always, come back to is the fact that you almost work you work just as hard for 1 to 2 inches as you do for 1 to 2 feet.
Yeah.
At least that's how it feels. And here's the I'm going to get the map of the snow that's being forecasted over the next couple of days. It's pretty sizable across the United States. Big amounts out in the west.
It looks like the Mid-Atlantic down toward Maryland, excuse me, South Jersey, and into Delaware. Those areas look like they have a good chance, I think, of getting at least 4, 5, 6 inches of snow.
And also for southeastern and central Pennsylvania.
Southeastern Pennsylvania, Amish country. But the way things have gone for us here this winter season, when I'm talking about us, I'm talking about in the New York tri-state area.
I.e. the snow hole.
I think I'm going to continue to roll the dice and say that this upcoming event is going to be no different, really, than what we have seen on other occasions, and that is a bit of snow, generally light accumulations, a bit of ice or glaze on top of that, and then very quickly it exits out, and then we go back into a rather, well, actually, the storm we had on the 20th of January, we went into a frigid weather pattern, but the last couple of times now we've gone into unusually mild weather. Looks like that's what's going to be the case this go-around on Thursday, and then a bit of a drop-off for Friday and the weekend. But, Joe, I really don't see a major snowfall with us.
No.
I've been in fact saying that I've seen amounts of like 2 and 3 inches, and I said that even that might be excessive. It's just a matter of the positioning of the high. The high moves off in the wrong direction, puts us in a southerly airflow. Now, it may very well be that the shallow, colder layer of air is being underestimated by many of the models, as is usually the case. But still, I think that the mild air is going to eat away at that cold air, and eventually we're going to see that transition from sleet and ice to just plain rain in the after midnight hours tomorrow night.
For us, it's really just an absolute delicate balance of timing, because the precip has to get in here while it's still cold enough. I mean, that's always the case, but in this particular instance, I think it's a little more critical. And if we have models suggesting that it's going to try to get in here a wee bit faster, and maybe it buys an extra hour or two for somebody. I mean, we're really talking about a handful of hours here where it'll snow. And I have a couple of concerns, and one in particular is, we're going to, tomorrow morning across south central Pennsylvania through into southeastern Pennsylvania, Maryland, and into northeastern Virginia, we're going to be looking at observations that are going to be showing probably moderate snows, inch-an-hour snows in some places. And there's a window where that shifts northward and it'll hold together. But if it misses that window, in other words, if it holds off, say, till mid or late afternoon, if it misses that window, it's going to start to lose some of the, it's going to lose the cold air. The dynamics for snow growth will be less impressive. And in fact, that area of snow may actually start to shrink as it moves northeastward. So that's going to impact amounts as well. I kind of just, except for moving a few lines here and there, I really, I really didn't change very much in terms of the volume. And I know that in some areas I might be a little bit lower. In some places I went a little, it might be a little bit higher in comparison to the Weather Service. But, I kind of came up with this idea. Look, if we wind up with 2 inches and somebody gets 3, I'm not going to waste a whole ton of energy, and sit in sackcloth and ashes because, you got 3 inches instead of 2. We're not talking feet here. This is a nuisance snow for our area. It might be a bit more as you get down to Washington, D.C. and Baltimore, because down there a 2 to 3 inch snowfall is really problematic. And that's what I think it'll be for Washington and Baltimore, 3 to 4 inches there. And I've got this zone of 4 inches plus. I'm not going to sit here and pick upside. Could somebody wind up with 5 or 6? Sure. I don't think it gets much more than that because there is a time issue with this precip coming northward.
I think if you believe the flat-out consensus between the 12Z or the 7 a.m. Model runs of the GFS and the NAM, the North American model, you look at the immediate New York City metropolitan area, snow is possible based upon those 2 models from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., the estimated time of arrival for snowflakes. However, the RPM model, and if you watch television and you see your local TV weather person provide you with what they call the futurecast, that's usually what the RPM model is. It's a model that has been designed by WSI, now it's known as simply as the Weather Company. Their model, their RPM model, suggests that the snows may not begin until sometime like 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. If that happens, as you point out, Joe, then the potency of the storm, the potential for initial heavy thump of accumulation, pretty much will go by the board. And then we only have a short interval of time before the southerly airflow will take over and begin to change that precipitation over from pure snow over to sleet, and then ice, and then that's it.
And you know what? It's all either going to get washed away with the rain, or if it doesn't get washed away with the rain, it's all going to melt on Thursday anyway.
Right.
So, this is really, as I said, my view of this is more of a nuisance than anything else.
I don't see this being anywhere near as terrible as what we had last Tuesday. Remember, it was just a week ago that we had the storm that brought snow, but that snow came in early in the day, and put down a couple of inches,
and then we had the sleet on top of it, which made it more problematic,
and it was more prolonged or whatever.
Right.
But this pattern, the high last week was north of us, and we had that northeasterly wind flow, a cold weather wind flow. This time around, tomorrow into tomorrow night, the winds are going to be coming in from the south. Right,
and the high goes out to a bad spot. We talked about that yesterday.
Right.
I got the Weather Service numbers. Everybody forecast shops. This is, I've got, look, I understand that everybody forecast shops, but one of the things that drives me crazy, and I know it probably drives you crazy, is, when someone says, how come you're doing this and so is doing that? Well, you know what? I can tell you why I'm doing it. You're going to have to ask so-and-so why they're doing it. And, it at least from the standpoint of what is out there in terms of the information, as we all look at the same stuff, you can see the amount of variation in terms of the thinking with regards to snow amounts. That there are perfectly good reasons for folks. We're looking here in Virginia and around Washington, D.C., Baltimore. I decided to start with this area first and then move up into Maryland. These are Weather Service amounts. They're much more bullish than I am. I got my area, as I said, I didn't want to topside it, so I just basically got this idea of 4 inches or more for much of this area, and I think this makes sense. But, again, it's comes in quick and relatively quick and goes out quick. You better put it down That precip needs to blossom out and develop. If it does it the way the models are showing it, you're going to come close to these numbers. But there's in this area, by the way, this winter has outperformed a lot of the storms that have occurred. So I think they're standing a pretty good chance of hitting these targets.
And one advantage that they have, they being Washington, Baltimore, Winchester, Leesburg, as you see on the map right now, on the screen right now, is that it comes early in the day, but number two, it's coming in the aftermath of a cold night. So that means that right off the bat, when the snow begins, it's going to stick.
Yeah.
There's
no question.
no reason not to think that it's not going to stick, and that's going to help. And the puff factor, I would suppose at the very beginning, we might be dealing with more than a 10-to-1 ratio, but then very quickly, as the day wears on, and as milder air begins to move in, we're going to be seeing the ratios come down a bit. It's going to become more slushy in consistency.
All right, for south central Pennsylvania, I kind of have this area, some of this area is in a 4-inch plus zone, some is in less than 4. The Weather Service is going, putting up amounts of roughly 4 to 6 in this area, so I'm not really that far off from them, and they're not far off from me. Harrisburg, York, Lancaster, Gettysburg, Chambersburg are all in that zone. I'm a little bit more on the lower end, but this area, in a couple of events, it performed in line, and then there were a couple of events where it underperformed a little bit. So I just kind of leaned in that direction. Now to our buddies in This is where it gets kind of interesting, Joe, because you don't often see the higher amounts in western New Jersey running up and down.
Right.
But that's because of the fact of where the high is going out and the south wind.
Right, exactly. The high is going straight out to the east, east of the Jersey coast, south of Long Island. So we are put into a southerly or even a south-southeasterly wind flow. It's not a vigorous south-southeasterly wind flow, but still it's happening both at the surface and also at the higher levels of the atmosphere, and that is helping to pump just enough warm air in to erode that dome of colder air that's over us now and over us tonight, and to allow for the precipitation to wheedle down. Where did I get that word, wheedle?
Wheedle. I don't know. Where'd you get that?
Didn't Lucy use that once in one of her episodes? The wheedling of Des.
I got
wheedling down to the point where we, as you point out, to the west it's quite a bit of snow or a moderate amount of snow, and as you progress east, deeper into that milder air mass with the south-southeast wind, east and south, then boom, it starts to.
So for the metro areas here, we got Philadelphia at 3, and now we'll switch over to New York City and southern Connecticut. And 2 to 3 inch amounts, Long Island 2, and then it drops down to 1 on the east end. The Connecticut, the numbers actually do lower as you go northward because of again, we go back to how the high is set up. But this area looks like in general about a 1 to 3 inch snowfall with the highest amounts to the west. It's a nuisance. There's nothing going on for this area for the morning commute. This is all going to be for the evening commute, and then we watch the changeover to rain.
And frankly, I think, Joe, and I've been saying this for the last couple of days, I think beyond central Long Island, central Suffolk County and points east, I don't see very much of anything at all falling. Of course, we'll know the answer tomorrow night to that. But
well, you know how special my area is. Sometimes it does find a way.
Yeah.
Radars. I mean, this area is under a flood watch. A lot of this area is under a flood watch. That's an impressive east-west band of heavy rains.
Just lifting.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like I got the surface map up. It's basically looks like it's a giant warm front that's that's lifting northward, and on that northwestern corner there in North Carolina, on some of the radars where you could see snow and the precip type, which I can't do here. But there is some snow that's already beginning, and now as this moves up into the colder air in Virginia, this is where you're going to start to see the radar blossoming for the overnight. And I do have the surface map, by the way. This was the most recent one, and as I said, it's like one giant long warm front coming northward out of the Gulf of Mexico.
Right.
This is a loaded system. It's impacting half the eastern half of the United States. And all that warm air, Joe, just pushing northward into the cold high, that is sitting right up in northwestern PA, southwestern New York.
See, now, for all the snow lovers out there, you say, why does it have to be there now? Why couldn't it be, let's say, over Wisconsin or Lake Superior, a little further back to the north and west, so that when it gets to that position, let's say tomorrow, with all the moisture coming up, that would be the situation for a big.
Or if it were pinned up in southern Quebec like the last time,
right?
Because that would have kept with all this tropical moisture coming up, you would have kept the northeast wind pinned in longer. If we had that high setup that we had last week with. Was it last Tuesday?
Tuesday.
Right.
Yeah.
If we had the high setup in the spot that we had it last Tuesday with this gigantic warm front coming up, we probably could have gotten a really solid snowfall from Virginia northward.
Right.
But it doesn't always work out that way,
Instead,
folks.
the high is like, may I use the term slither? It's like a snake. It's slithering off of the New Jersey coastline during the day tomorrow and tomorrow night. And on the backside, we're getting that southerly airflow, which opens the door for milder air, which in turn will change any prospective big snowfall to snow, to sleet, the ice, to rain, and boom. That's
Okay.
it.
Let's go to. We'll start with the late afternoon NAM model, and this way we can take a look at the whole country because the action that is out in the west continues, and I'll just roll it through. Then we're going to get a tighter view here. So there's our snow coming up in the east. You can see where the high goes. It goes to right over Long Island, and then just kind of meanders around, and then pushes east of the New Jersey coast. So that's what we've always called as that's a bad high, quote unquote. But in the meantime, Joe, out in the west, it just doesn't stop with these systems dropping down through the northwest and then into the southwest again as we go through this 48-hour period, and then there's another one that comes into the northwest toward the end. So that conveyor belt continues, and now, of course, let's get this all figured out because we're getting ready to get started. First off, here's we'll roll it right along. I'll bring it up so everybody could see the time there. So this is at 2 a.m. Wednesday, and here it is at 7 a.m. So snow is snowing in Washington, just getting ready to start at Baltimore, or may have just started in Baltimore. It's not a huge area here in terms of geography. You got to go. You go not that far south and west. It's already changed over to sleet and freezing rain in southwestern Virginia, and then this is one of the reasons why I'm concerned about these high top numbers, because if it's only going to snow for 4 or 5 hours, it better snow at 1 to 2 inches an hour to get that to get to 4, 5, or 6. But the differences today, Joe, is the fact that the NAM and a few other models seem to be bringing that snow in faster. Yesterday they were pinning it south and west of New York City. Today they've got it up almost into eastern Long Island by 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So if this winds up verifying, I think the numbers that are out there will probably work.
Right.
And then we'll roll it along. And now here comes your warm air. Washington.
Notice also the dark shades of blue kind of just sideswipe the New York metropolitan area.
Right.
So if you were going to look for a significant thump, so to speak, of maybe 1 inch per hour snow, from this perspective, it looks like that's going to just slide. It might hit parts of maybe Nassau County or
Well, bring it even to my house, to Western Suffolk, and just this way I can be happy. The changeover times, I'm thinking Washington, D.C., by 9 or 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, that sleet line may be already through. This is at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. It's knocking at the door. So you would have only been snowing for about 3 or 4 hours, if that's correct.
Right.
And it looks like it reaches Philadelphia sometime around, say, 4 o'clock. For a changeover,
yeah,
4 o'clock. All of southeast and south central PA and Maryland, either in sleet or freezing rain. New York City looks like it changes between 5 and 6. So you've got 4 hours, 4 or 5 hours.
Right.
You start to change over. Long Island changes over between 6 and 7, and then it goes almost immediately to rain.
So let's say if it's a half an inch an hour, because as I just noted, it doesn't look like the heavy stuff. The
kind of
dark
starts
shades of
to
blue.
thin out a bit.
Right. So it may be like 2.5 inches for New York, maybe.
That might work. And then we go to sleet, we go to rain, and then it's over with. Little secondary low develops almost on top of us, and then out it goes to the northeast.
Right.
The models all seem to have a similar idea. We could take a look. It's probably not out. The 0Z HRRR is not out yet. Shall we look at the RGEM?
Sure.
Why not? Let's look at the RGEM, which is the regional Canadian model, and see if the differences. Might be just subtle ones, but here's that again. That snow area moves in. Even the RGEM, Joe,
Has around noon or 1 o'clock or whatever.
And look at that dark blue snow up in northeastern Maryland there. But that disappears.
Yeah.
That's because of where the high is going. You're losing that wedge,
Right.
and those southerly isobars start to take over. So the snow area gradually weakens. This is it's my concern as well that we could have this impressive area of snow for a while, heading our way, and then it just starts to slowly peter out or weaken as it moves to the northeast, and I think that is a big concern. And then it goes over to sleet and freezing. This seems to take it over to sleet and freezing rain faster across southern Pennsylvania. Some heavy rains there overnight over New Jersey.
The area of sleet. That's sleet over
I think
Putnam County or
I
whatever.
think that's freezing rain, and that's sleet up in the purple.
Okay.
And the reddish is more freezing rain.
Okay. Well, they had that over my house at midnight.
Yeah, and then it goes to rain.
And then it
after
goes
that.
to rain or whatever after that. So.
And then it's over. So, and then, of course, as we said, Thursday's going to be a mild day. So the short-range models are, they're doing what they're doing. I think we're kind of at the point now where we know it's going to happen. So let's just let it happen and be done with it.
Yeah.
And this way, tomorrow I can sit here and say I should have just stayed with my early call, which was a little lower. All right. So I promised Scott Briller that I would bring up Le Plumes. Okay. So what this is a Stony Brook University production. And there's 26 different members to this mess, and anybody can go and use this. You can scroll in on the map, you pick your points, and you pick on the dots, and then it'll give you that black line gives you an average of the total of all these different parameters: temperature, dew point, liquid precip. So of course we're going to focus on the total snow.
You might call this the ensemble. In a way,
you might, Rabbit. You
might, yeah.
Okay, so let's take a couple of points. All right, so let's look at Philadelphia. All right, from the last run, which was at 3 o'clock this afternoon. The SREF only gives Philadelphia just under 3 inches, an average of 3 inches. Now, each one of these lines that you see, folks, is each one of the model members. Okay. And they each come up with some kind of snow amount. And if you look off, I don't know if you guys can see it on the side. It's kind of off the scale there, but that's the range that the model produces. So
topmost.
The topmost. So you've got one model that actually gives on the top end 6. Okay, and so the average is 3. So it looks like half give above and half give below.
Right.
And my problem with using these things, Joe, has always been, if you're going to use an average, you're always going to wind up with average results. A lot of the times the answers to the solutions to these things are above the average somewhere or below the average somewhere. And for our area, anyway, as you pointed out, being below average has been beneficial. The other thing I noticed, Joe, is for some reason, I would have thought that the numbers down here in Philadelphia, Wilmington, for example, gets 2.5. Lancaster, okay, now that makes sense. They get a little over, they get 4 and change. Reading gets almost 5. And again, that's logical. Hagerstown only gets 4. So then you bring up New York City, and on the last run, New York City got over 3.25. So I don't know what it's seeing. And by the way, in the New York City SREF, which is also interesting, you'll notice that the lowest member it gives 2 inches.
Right.
You don't have members clustered near the bottom at 0. So the lowest member gives 2, the highest gives 7. So you know what? This kind of says to me that for New York City, that 2 to 3, or maybe a little bit more, 2 to 3 is probably doable here. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense to you?
I don't know. Philadelphia was down by the bottom, though. There were a few members.
Right, Philly was.
Yeah.
Okay, Philly has several members that give them less than an inch, but I just thought it was kind of odd that New York City's bottom member gives just under 2 inches. So
if you follow this to the letter, you'd say, well, we're going to get at least 2 inches.
Right.
Or 2 inches is a lock. And I don't know.
I also found it unusual, at least out east over Long Island, for islip. The bottom member is at least an inch, and it gives islip 3 inches. So where does this come from?
I don't know.
The way we usually use this tool, and we've got 3 inches for White Plains, by the way, and the way we usually use this tool is really to look at the trend.
Right.
If did it move up or down from the prior run? And it has increased over the last couple of runs. So, that might be an indicator of what the next model series is going to do. Mm-hmm. There's never any guarantees from the management when it comes to this sort of thing. Now, make sure you get in the shot now.
Well, I'm in the shadow.
Get into the light. You know what? Let me get the other light on.
Turn that light.
And...
Aha!
Yes.
And then there was light.
And there was light.
Yes.
So, look, at least we're wrapping up with respect to the short range stuff, folks. This is what it is, and we'll get what we get. We'll melt it, either wash it or melt it all away, and then we'll do better. Now, I just remembered, because we got some time, and of course we have to point out the daily obligatory snowstorms that the models show in the long range.
Oh, please.
I know, but we have to do that. So we'll start with the European.
You had to?
Yeah, because if I don't do it, they'll ask anyway. So we'll start with the European, and I want to just bring up the upper air. What you folks watching, you know what the repetitious signature pattern has been: ridge in the east, trough in the west. Well, that is going to change as we get toward the end of the month. And actually, it looks like it starts to change early next week. And we actually go to a trough in the east and more of a ridge in the west. Okay. So, I've been kind of feeling, Joe, that at the last, right at the very end of February and maybe for the first handful of days of March, that this, the pattern that we've been in, this almost unrelenting pattern of the trough being in the west, has got to relax.
Right.
So this might be a week to 10-day break. And that might open up a window for something to happen if circumstances play out a certain way.
Yeah, tremendous upper high over Alaska.
Right.
Yeah.
And the European, actually, this trough that you see here a week from today running into the plains is what the European decided today was going to be its obligatory snowstorm for the east. And, of course, it piled up some big numbers. And, of course, we all know that how many times... Raise your hand if you know how many times the European has predicted snowstorms this winter, and how many of those snowstorms have actually come to be. If you said 0, you are correct. So we would expect that on the next run of the European, this system will have disappeared.
Well, I mean, you make a comparison to just 12 hours ago. Last night's 0-0 run, I mean, didn't have anything like what it suggested.
Let's see. Nope, troughs. I mean, it goes to the trough in the east idea,
right,
but
I mean,
the structure's totally different.
Right.
Okay, I mean, more of a trough in the east. It's starting to pull out the trough in the west, but still kind of more leans west than anything else. But yeah, today it did the obligatory snowstorm, and we can actually show it on the. I'll bring it up on its surface map. Let me make sure I got the map up there so everybody can see it, which they are. And our maps, by the way, are always courtesy of tropicaltidbits.com, your go-to website for all things weather. And here it is on next Wednesday, where it's got this deepening low near Cape Cod, and then it becomes an animal.
May.
I'm sorry, near Cape May.
Get your capes.
Exactly. From Cape May, and then goes to Nova Scotia and deepens to a 973 low. Do we believe it? No. And that kind of ends that conversation. And let's look at the GFS earlier today, had its obligatory snowstorm. Instead of having it a week away. It had it right there. Okay? And this is on March 5th. All right, so put it, should we put the watch up now? This is the daily model silliness that we go through, and you folks, I'm sure you see this stuff peppered. It's only 300 hours away.
324 hours away, Joe. I mean,
I know, but look. The one takeaway from all of this is not the specifics. It's that there will be a window for something to try to happen, and that would be before, it's going to be a short window, and I think after that we'll probably go back to this trough in the west, ridge in the east idea, which means that spring gets to come on time this year.
Does that mean the groundhog was right? Maybe? I don't know.
The groundhog needs to be, as I've said many times, garlic, paprika, sage, and rosemary, and then baked in a 350-degree Viking oven.
Okay.
Folks, it's a nuisance snow. We'll get over it. I don't think, Mark G., that somebody's going to get 6 to 12 out of this. There's no time. It's a handful of hours. It's a handful of hours before it changes to rain, and the high is in a bad spot, so the cold air is going to get whittled away in a big hurry, right?
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. So
time is the bigger enemy, I think. You can only have so much time. If you're going to get 6 to 12. Where's the dynamics? There's no dynamics.
You lose them. You've got them for a very, very short window. It's a 4 to 6 hour window at best.
Right.
Now, the elevated areas in northwestern Virginia, in the mountains there, somebody's going to wind up with a sizable amount, but that's going to be the exception.
Right.
But as far as the bigger cities and even some of the smaller cities that's around the big cities, there's not going to be 6 to 12 numbers down there. I just can't see it because there's just not enough time. Jeff Petty thinks so much he actually muted Jeopardy. Okay.
What was the final Jeopardy answer?
That we'll find out. Let's see.
I think they're having the All-Star Tournament, by the way, tomorrow night. They're going to have, I think, the greatest, the all-time best players are going to be broken down into teams, and they're going to fight each other out for over the next week or 2 weeks or whatever. So
Arnev Borole, the snow hole at I-95 doesn't start at Washington. Washington actually has above average snowfall for the year, and I believe Baltimore has about average. Even Philadelphia is only a little bit below average. Atlantic City's above average. So I would say it starts at about Philadelphia.
Right.
Or just north of Philadelphia, north and east of Philadelphia, to New York City, to Hartford, to Boston, and Portland, Maine. That's where the snow hole is.
Right.
And it extends north and west of that line by about, 75 miles, you think?
Or thereabouts, yeah.
Yeah, I think that works.
Well, I live 50 miles north of Midtown Manhattan, and I've had a grand total of maybe 11 or 12 inches of snow, and that's ridiculous, because I normally average, up where I live, like 40 to 50, easy. And at this point in the winter, I only have like a foot. That's
and
crazy.
By the way, and even with the snow hole, because the world doesn't revolve around the I-95 corridor, 53% of the United States is snow covered right now. That's the highest total since 2003.
Wow.
So X out that snow hole. And the winter has been quite a big snow producer.
Right.
Talk to somebody that's in the upper Midwest, around the Great Lakes.
Yeah.
Chicago's above average. The central and northern plains, to a certain extent, the southern plains as well. Then there's a bit of a snow hole in the eastern part of Colorado, in Denver, for example. They've also been in a bit of a snow drought. But then go to Seattle, go to the West Coast. The world doesn't just revolve around the folks that run from Boston down to New York City to near Philly.
So many places have had snow that normally do not get snow. I'm almost surprised that Miami didn't at least see a few snowflakes.
Well, they never got the trough down deep enough to bring the cold air all the way down.
They've only had snow once, and that was back in '77.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah, that time, and I think they even said they saw snow flurries in Bermuda during that cold push that went.
That
all
I
the
did
way
not
down.
hear, but I would believe it. That was an extensively large cold air mass.
That it was. All right, you know what? It's coming up on a quarter to the hour, and I haven't had my dinner yet, so I want to have my dinner.
It's getting cold.
Then I better go have my dinner. So you know what? You and I will do a reprise tonight on Facebook.
And we'll have the NAM.
We'll have the
to
new
look at.
NAM. This will be the last. This is so exciting. There are some folks who claim that they're the only ones that put models on the air, but I've been doing it just for the record. I've been doing it. I've been putting models on the air when some folks were still in kindergarten. So let's just leave it at that. And bear in mind that tonight you and I are going to live stream the NAM tonight, the last one before this snow event that we're going to have, this nuisance snow event that's got our attention.
Well, maybe the one that comes out tomorrow morning at 9:30 or whatever.
Well, that one, but it's already underway, and
It's
usually
here.
when we, a lot of times when we get inside 24 hours, I lose interest in looking at the model for the short range.
Well, basically,
I'm just like ready to let it rip.
It's now casting by then.
Yeah,
By then. So
and that's what we're going to be watching. That's what we're going to do tomorrow morning. We'll be watching, radars and looking at observations and seeing some heavy snows down to the south, and then watching them whittle away as they move to the north.
We'll see.
At least that's the plan.
Yep.
All right. Have a great night, everybody. 9:25 roughly on Facebook. Meteorologist Joe Chaffee. So tune in, and of course tomorrow we'll be back with our regular live stream at 7:00 Eastern time. See you later.
And we won't be crying either.
No, we won't.
Tomorrow night.
Hopefully we'll be fed.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.